Morning, everyone. So, I wanted to go over what was an absolute disaster for the Tories yesterday. And you may think I'm talking about Rishi Sunak's anti-trans attack in PMQs yesterday, but in actual fact, that's sort of part of the disaster, but that is not ultimately what was the core of the disaster for them. So you may have missed, there were, before PMQs, there were a few little stories bobbing about. The Conservatives were trying to claim that Labour's spending plans cost more than Labour are suggesting. So they came out with one. So Labour have a policy for insulating homes, for example. And the Conservatives were saying, oh, the Treasury have done the sums on this, and it will actually cost twice as much as Labour are claiming. Now, I sort of joked at the time, what's probably happening here is the Tories probably made the mistake of thinking, oh, these spending plans of theirs, oh, well, you need to account for kickbacks for Tory donors. We'll just add that on instead, forgetting that it's not actually going to be happening. But it all unravelled because the Tories were claiming that the Treasury had done the sums on it. The Treasury was saying, no, we have not. Jeremy Hunt was interviewed, the Chancellor, and he had to admit that they just basically made the figures up. So the Conservatives were pushing this idea all yesterday. Oh, Labour's spending, they cost twice as much as they say, And the reason they were doing this, it was all part of would you believe it, a carefully planned strategy, according to Sam Coates of Sky. They were deliberate. They were trying a tactic of claiming that Labour's spending plans cost more than they say, and that it's going to land you with loads of taxes, so that they could then segue into the £28 billion green investment thing, which Labour are falling to pieces over again. We'll see what is actually said today, because, again, I suspect how the media are presenting it is not actually true. And so have Labour scrapped the £28 billion pledge? It's like yes and no. They've scrapped the figure, not the pledge. So none of the policies are being touched. What they're doing is that it's purely for the election. The money will be spent. The point that's been made is the money for the £28 billion green investment has to come from borrowing, right? And the cost of borrowing is 5 times as much as it was. So it's allowing the Tories to say, oh, they haven't taken account of that. It's going to cost you more money, right? So they're just dropping the figure, but they're not dropping the policies. So basically, the policies are still there. They just don't want to talk about the specific. They never should have talked about a specific figure in the first place. But anyway, that is that. I did discuss that on Sunday. Nothing's changed. Nothing will change with today's announcement. The media are all, for various reasons, saying that the policy's scrapped. It's not scrapped. If it was scrapped, Keir Starmer would not have said twice in the last few days that he's still committed to it. That's really important, because that would be an even bigger disaster than the Tories had yesterday. But anyway, the point was that actually another point is when we're talking about this announcement today, whatever is announced today, actually Keir Starmer could come out and say, yeah, I'm scrapping everything. Oh, Great British Energy, yeah, that's not happening. Oh, insulating homes, yeah, we're scrapping that too. Everything. And actually, it still wouldn't make the news because of the disaster of Sunak's behaviour yesterday. But he's not actually going to do that. And so that was the plan for the Tories yesterday, to make it all about Labour's spending promises and how they're going to cost twice as much as they claim, and it'll add this much amount to your tax bill and all the rest of it. And it unravelled already because, like I say, Jeremy Hunt had to admit that his aides, his like political advisors had made up the figures, that the Treasury had not come up with those figures at all. But in a way, they've dodged the bullet there, because then Rishi Sunak opened his mouth in PMQs. And I'll tell you how much of a disaster this was. I mean, at the time, I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely incredulous that he would do something that stupid. The suggestion is now coming out, supposedly, that Rishi Sunak was not aware that Esther J was in the gallery just above him. But then it's also pointed out, I pointed out myself, that Keir Starmer mentioned it at the beginning of PMQs. So that would mean that Rishi Sunak wasn't listening or paying attention. But it would also have to mean that, so if you ever watch PMQs, if you look behind the Prime Minister, there's always a couple of people with like notepads. They're not MPs, right? They're his aides. So he has them to tap him on the shoulder in case he needs bringing up to date with something, or if he's going to be asked about something and they need some figures. So they pass him little notes, right? And as well as take notes, because the reason for them being there is Rishi Sunak might be asked a question to which he doesn't know the answer. You know how sometimes a proper prime minister, if they're asked, instead of one who's just like descended into the culture wars, when we, in the days when we had normal prime ministers, what would happen is that they would, they'd be asked questions and the prime minister would go, oh, I don't actually know the answer to that. I will get back to you, right? What's happening is those aides are supposed to be writing down the question and who's asked it so that the prime minister can write a letter to them later on, yeah? So that's why they're there. They obviously hadn't paid attention either because they did not tap him on the shoulder and say, oh, you know that line we were going to work out about like your trans stuff? Because that was worked out in advance. The attack line was worked out in advance, right? You better not use that today because, you know, Esther J is in the public gallery. So I'm not sure if I believe it. I could possibly, I can certainly believe that he really didn't realize what he was doing. And I'll tell you why I don't believe that it was just a mistake at the time, because he was specifically asked to apologize later on in the proceedings, at which point he should have taken, and I know it was a Labour MP asking it, but he should have taken the opportunity. If Rishi Sunak recognized what he'd done, he would have taken the opportunity to apologize for any offense caused, blah, 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 kill the story. But he didn't. He doubled down. Then apparently what happened, because I actually said in my video yesterday on my own channel, he will apologize. He will apologize just because it was so damaging. And he hasn't apologized. He's now doubled down on it. And the reason for this, according to Sam Coates of Sky News, is because of the tweets that Kemi Badenoch sent out. Now, in the aftermath of all this, Kemi Badenoch, and I'd seen these tweets, was doubling down on it. Now, a few other Tory MPs were not. They were going, oh, he didn't really mean it. Jeremy Hunt, for example, was saying, oh, no, he didn't actually say that. So basically, Tory MPs at this point who were being asked, they didn't want to defend Sunak's statement. So what they were trying to do instead was pretend that he didn't make the statement at all. Whereas Kemi Badenoch came straight out and defended the statement, said he was right to say it and blah, blah, and how disgraceful it was of Keir Starmer to have a pop at him for it. And that, according to Coates, stopped Rishi Sunak apologizing because Rishi Sunak was talking to his advisors. He didn't mention whether or not sock puppets were involved. And they were actually discussing making an apology. And then it turns out that Kemi Badenoch had basically cock-blocked him. So she had, because I suppose the implication is that if Sunak had then apologized, it would make Badenoch look stupid. But that's bad in itself because it was Badenoch should not have made that intervention. Basically, all the vaguely sensible Tory MPs, including senior MPs, were all trying to downplay what Sunak had said. They weren't defending it. They were trying to say, oh, it's not what you meant, or you misunderstood, or you misheard it. And that's the line they were taking. They weren't saying, oh, no, it was quite right to say it. Whereas she did. Now, whether that's politically naive on her part or whether it's deliberate to try and force Sunak to nail his colours to the mast, I don't know. But it has had the effect. It has had the effect of meaning that Sunak now has to double down on it, which is what's happened this morning. Chris Philp has been out doing the media round. He's been doubling down on it. So it is now the government's position to, yeah, we're now committed to this attack line. And I want you to consider a couple of things. So first of all, Adam Bienkov of Byline Times was reminding us all yesterday that Lee Anderson last year, and I remember this, Lee Anderson last year, as deputy party chair, so as someone involved in strategy discussions, said that the party would probably fight the next election on culture wars and trans issues. He specifically said that. So what Rishi Sunak now is doing is he's committing inadvertently, because so Graham before the stream asked, do I think that Sunak deliberately made the statement to try and create a furore? Not at all, because remember, they were actually trying to make yesterday about Labour spending plans, right? Because Labour are tying themselves in knots over this green investment policy, right? When it's actually a really popular policy and they should absolutely be doubling down on it themselves. So there's no way Sunak wanted to say anything controversial in PMQs, because that would distract from the message they were trying to get out there, right? So Sunak absolutely messed up. It wasn't deliberate, but the result of it is now that he's effectively having to commit himself to a Lee Anderson strategy. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? So the situation he now is in is, again, he's so weak. Like, there's a comment there, if Sunak had any power, he'd apologise, sack Badenoch, and then move along. Or just not care that she looks stupid. He would have to say, he would apologise. And if Kemi Badenoch goes, oh, you made me look silly, he should have said, no, you made yourself look silly. You're naive. You should have seen your other colleagues prevaricating on it, and you should have done the same. That's what he should, but he can't because he is weak. He's not a leader. He's not a leader. But but that's the situation they find themselves in now. They're, according to Sam Coates, this strategy to try and trash Labour spending plans was months in the making. So he's basically flushed away the culmination of a strategy they'd been working on, right? So that's down the toilet. Then they've allowed Labour to make this, and whatever announcement they're going to make today, they've allowed Labour to make it under cover of Tory cock-up because it's not going to get much traction. He's committed himself now to fighting an election on trans issues, which Labour need to be wary of, because obviously Labour want it to be about the economy and so on. But at the same time, this is, you know, the other thing to note is there were reported to be quite a lot of Tory MPs wanting Sunak to resign. So these will, I don't know which ones, but I will bet you it's Tory MPs in constituencies that are looking a bit ropey for the next election. Because there'll be Tory MPs, even though they were laughing like baboons yesterday, they know that this is going to play very badly with their voters. They may have already had some emails from voters saying that this is disgraceful and what's their position on it. So there may already be Tory MPs who are having to write or think about having to write emails to their constituents. On the one hand, not defending Sunak, but at the same time, what do they do? Because they can't. Sunak's doubled down on it. The opportunity for an apology is now past. It's gone. It no longer exists. Captain Bart Roberts saying, I've worked in gender affirmation surgery since the late 70s. Why all of a sudden are trans people such a threat? I'll tell you why. It's because the Conservatives have been in power for years and they've completely destroyed the country. They can no longer credibly claim that they're getting the country on the right track. Laura Trott, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, yesterday was saying, oh, the economy's turned a corner. We've turned a corner. They've been saying that for years. George Osborne hasn't been Chancellor for, when did he step down? It would have been 2016, wouldn't it, basically? You know, so he hasn't been Chancellor for like 7.5 years. And yet he was talking about the green shoots of recovery. They've been banging on this thing for years and years and years. And it's no longer credible. They cannot claim that they've got the country on the right track. They can't show anything for 14 years. So what do? They revert to type and blame minorities. They try and target small groups of vulnerable people in the country who don't vote Conservative anyway, preferably don't vote at all. And they say that the problem of, you know, the ills for like 30 million people in the country are the fault of this like few 100,000 at most. That's why all of a sudden, you know, trans issues have to come to the fore. That's why, you know, the anti-immigration stuff's always sort of there in the background, but that's why it's now front and center. It's because they've got nothing. This image behind me, where Rishi Sunak inexplicably, and this is why I say it's not just Sunak who's an idiot, his advisors, someone filmed that, someone edited it, someone published it, right? This isn't just Rishi Sunak. He's not doing what I do. I'm a solo operation. He's not, right? He's got a team around him. They have agreed that this image was suitable. He's drawn the saddest house you've ever seen in your life. and written 2024 about it. That is a metaphor for his government. And Labour was straight on it. I mean, Labour used it in some promotional stuff yesterday. I think they joked something like, it looks like the House is contemplating another 5 years of a Tory government. And Tories have turned so many corners, it's actually a circle. We'd like it to be a circle because then we could be back at square one, which is something Sunak says he doesn't want to be. The problem with their turning corners, they turn left, then turn right, then turn left, then turn right, and go nowhere. But yeah, so it produced this video. But what the video, in a serious sense, what the video was, it wasn't him presenting a plan as such. It was him presenting excuses. It's like a close to a 3-minute video. Let me have a look. And it's on the Rishi Sunak YouTube channel. It's not on the Conservative Party YouTube channel. It's Rishi Sunak's YouTube channel, where he's got a crap load of subscribers. So I don't know how he's managed that. I reckon he's paid for them, because the number of views he's getting is bollocks. Look, Rishi Sunak, 617,000 subscribers. The video he posted last night, which has been there for 16 hours, not even 11,000 views. I'm gonna have a look at the background of this channel. So it's looking to me like he's basically paid for subscribers, which doesn't work. But he won't get his silver play button because YouTube will go, no, those are fake. But the whole video was him making excuses. 2 minutes 44 seconds, and it's him saying, "Oh, look at the state of the country in 2022 when I took over. Oh, it was a terrible state. We had this happening and this happening and this happening." He didn't blame Liz Truss or Brexit, but he said we had all this stuff happening, and it was basically excuses. So they've now run out. They can't. Oh, I've got a super chat. Oh, sorry, have I? Oh yes, Gary Arnold, £2. Thank you very much. Have Labour lost the Muslim vote? No. There's polling been done. There's been several polls done. There was some polling done last week, and there's various reports going, oh, it shows that Labour have lost like half the Muslim vote. No, it doesn't. That's the. You remember a few weeks ago when YouGov did that MRP poll, and then David Frost, who was the front man for the group who commissioned it, said, oh, if you do this and this and this, oh, it shows that if the Conservatives got rid of Rishi Sunak, it would. It said then they could win. They could win the election if they had a different leader. And it's like, no, the polling didn't say that at all. That was just crap analysis. This is the same thing. It's people with an agenda who've done incredible. And again, just like when David Frost did that hatchet job on the analysis of the YouGov MRP poll, YouGov had to come out and say, no, this is not the correct analysis. Well, the pollster, I can't remember who did the poll last week. Was it? I can't remember who it was. It might have been Savanta. I forget. But whichever pollster it was, when, I think it was someone from ITV who did the analysis, they came out and said, no, that's totally inappropriate analysis. Because what they'd done is they'd fed in a load of don't knows that didn't exist with the one they were comparing it to. So no, they haven't, is the simple answer. They haven't. And it will be exposed. What will happen is in the Rochdale by-election, because we know George Galloway's there, and we know he's going to attract a lot of. He's a con merchant. He's like the left-wing Nigel Farage, and he will con a load of people, but he won't stop Labour winning that election. And if Labour win Rochdale in a by-election where people are free to sort of like use the vote as a protest vote, yeah, because it doesn't change anything in Parliament. If Labour win Rochdale, then it basically shows there isn't an issue at all. Not an issue at all. Because that is the issue with polls. A lot of the time, people, it's not the I mean, a poll can be badly conducted as well. Remember, there are pollsters who are very bad at conducting polls, so the actual fundamentals of a poll are bad. But even when you get a credible pollster, the people presenting the poll, the people who've commissioned it, get to present it, they sometimes carry out inappropriate analysis, like innumerate analysis, I should really say. But there you go. When's Starmer going to call for a ceasefire? We've already had a ceasefire. What good does a ceasefire do? Right? He's called for a lasting peace. And actually, Starmer has been calling for what you would call a ceasefire before people were calling for a ceasefire. He called them humanitarian pauses. That's a ceasefire. So he's been doing it for a long time. So don't try and come the Starmer's position on the Gaza thing's wrong. No, he's calling for peace. He's calling for the two-state solution. The people calling for a ceasefire, because the ceasefire, remember, exists in a state of war. Anyone calling for a ceasefire is calling for a state of war to continue, because what they really want is for Israel to be destroyed. They want other countries around the Middle East to get involved. They want Iran to get involved, right? They want to wipe Israel off the map. They don't want a two-state solution. They don't want peace. Yeah, it's really that simple. But anyway, and also, yeah, Grimfang's making the point there that the way the media, and remember, a lot. So where do you get your information about what Keir Starmer's actually said or David Lammy's said? You can either get it directly from source, or you can get it from either the media, the mainstream media, or the tanky media, neither of which will present what he's actually said. So if you want to know what Starmer or David Lammy, as the shadow foreign secretary, has had to say about Labour's official position, follow them on Twitter, because every time they have anything to say on it, they post it on Twitter. What can we see through the triangle window? There's Annabelle. She looks angry. She's noticed a trans person going for a poo. It is. I mean, it's like, I cannot believe that anyone seriously thought this would be a good idea. I mean, first of all, letting him do the flip chart. Flip charts are a terrible idea. You understand how in an impromptu meeting, some people need to use flip charts, right? But they're a relic of the past. If you're doing a presentation to the public, you expect to see use digital imagery. Like, what's he trying to do? Is he trying to say, oh, I'm going to be like an ordinary person, I'm going to use a pen? It's like, no. If you've got a message to get across, explain the message, use digital imagery, right? A flip chart is for doing things on the fly. That's what a flip chart is for. It's for doing things on the fly. There was a time when we didn't have easy access to digital imagery, when it was an essential tool, right? Even if you'd planned it in detail. In which case, even if you'd planned it in detail, you would have written it all out in advance, and you'd literally, that's why it's called a flip chart. You'd literally flip the pages because you've done it in advance. This is like, it's an attempt to seem genuine and comes across as clown-like, because you run the risk of I mean, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what that house is supposed to be. It's the most ridiculous thing I've seen in my life. And this was recorded in advance. This wasn't, I don't know when this was recorded. It won't have been today. This will have been recorded at the weekend or something, right? A team of people have looked at that and said, yeah, that's what we should publish. So his advisors are as bad as he is. It doesn't matter that Rishi Sunak is bad at politics. If he'd have at least hired advisors who were good at politics, we wouldn't know how bad he was. Because I'll tell you the thing that yesterday's debacle showed. Even if he didn't realize what a mess it was going to be, I keep saying, wait until the general election campaign. He's got to go out and about, right? We've seen just in recent times what's happened. He's basically attacked trans rights, the idea of Labour supporting trans rights, underneath the grieving mother of someone who was killed for basically being trans. We've seen him laugh in the face of a voter talking about concerns about the NHS. It's like, I keep saying, imagine what he's going to be like in the general election campaign when the pressure will be on him. We know he doesn't cope well with pressure. He gets very irritated if things don't go his way. He's very petulant. He's like Boris Johnson. I now think he might actually be worse than Boris Johnson. So he'll be out and about making a proper ass of it. Let's say he avoids it. Some people say, well, maybe he just won't then. Okay, that'll just make things worse for the Tories. TV debates. Let's say he dodges the TV debates. That'll just make things worse for the Tories. They'll look like they're running scared. Boris Johnson got away with it a bit last time because he was ahead in the polls. He was playing a defensive game. Rishi Sunak is going to start behind in the polls. And, I'm just going to have a quick check. But in the poll of polls, which I don't really like dodgy, but you know, it at least averages out all of them. You know, Labour on a 20-point lead. The lead, Labour's lead hasn't really changed in over a year. It's give or take 20 points. It's like sometimes 21 points, sometimes it's 19 points. It just bounces between two values. Occasionally it widens or shortens a bit more and then goes back again. You know, the polls haven't gone anywhere in 13 months. And Sunak hasn't sacked the advisors who were advising him during those 13 months. They're still there. It's the same people. It's all the same people who are driving the Conservative strategy. And the only thing I thought maybe the Tories will be able to tighten the polls a little bit was because Isaac Levidow, their professional strategist, is now permanently installed in CCHQ. He's been there since New Year, so he's been there since the 1st of January. And maybe they had a break, maybe it was the 2nd of January. But right from the start of January, CCHQ has been active. That's Conservative Campaign Headquarters, by the way. That's their brains, if you can use that word. And I am also told by people who monitor it that it's been a hive of activity. They are at election fever. They're fully staffed. CCHQ is fully staffed, fully operational, right? They're working all through the day, every office filled, right? So yesterday would have had Rishi Sunak's professional strategist dictating a lot of it as well. And it's all, and okay, he won't have told Rishi Sunak to shit the bed in PMQs, but this is how Rishi Sunak is with his professional strategist in day-to-day charge. Because before, Isaac Levidow was just like part-time. He was only going to become full-time during the campaign itself. He's now full-time. He's been full-time for over a month. And this is what we've got. 5 weeks later, this is what we've got. The Tories made a complete disaster yesterday. The video was put out as a party political broadcast last night on the BBC. Was it? I've only seen it on YouTube. I knew it was going to be put out somewhere. I mean, that's incredible because it's not even on the Conservative Party website. It's on Rishi Sunak's paid-for channel. They say Reform is also at 10%, but they don't have the same concentration in key seats. We'll see where Reform UK are next week, next Friday, because I think their share of the vote is being inflated a bit. Because it, like, when you say like 10%, things like that, it is. Most pollsters have them like that. Ipsos Mori don't. And what's the difference between the two? Ipsos Mori carry out telephone interviews for their polls. All the others are online polls. So there's been a suggestion for some time that the way the online pollsters, even the good ones, are conducting it is inadvertently amplifying Reform UK support. So we'll see how they do in Wellingborough. They're really going for it in Wellingborough. But I also want to see Kingswood as well. Because for me, it's no good Reform UK doing well in Wellingborough, but not in Kingswood. If they're going to prove that they've got widespread support around the country, they need to do well in both those by-elections. They are obviously trying harder in Wellingborough, so you would expect them to do better in Wellingborough. But, you know, there it is. So basically, after yesterday, let's have a look at the three disasters. So first of all, Jeremy Hunt having to admit that the so-called Labour spending policies that they costed was made up. So that makes them look dishonest. Fortunately, they get away with it because most people won't have seen that because of the second problem, which is Rishi Sunak showing that his operation is callous and cruel. And then third, this video for which, I mean, you're onto a loser. If you ever do any presentation where your opponents use a clip of that presentation completely unmodified and they use it for their own promotional material, then you've messed up. And that shows them to be clown-like. That shows them to be utterly ridiculous. This video is not a good look for Sunak. All it is excuses. It's just making excuses. And the flip chart idea it's like someone, you know, earlier this week, did anyone see that thing of Deanna Davison, Tory MP, trying to, you know, get down with the kids? You know, it's like, it'd be like what Rishi Sunak has done with this video in using this flip chart and having his like top on instead of a suit and stuff like that, What he's doing is it's like the equivalent of Jacob Rees-Mogg getting on stage and saying, "What up, my homies?" That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to. It doesn't come across as genuine. It comes across as being patronizing. He's trying to pretend he's like David Brent in The Office or something, as if that's a good thing. You know, it should have been professionally presented. You know, delivery lines to an auto cue. If you need visuals, have them digitally added to it. You know, you're supposed to be about the message. He's made it about the style rather than the substance because there was no substance. Therefore, he's distracted with the style, but he's made a right arse of it. Isn't the picture on the flip chart the Play School house? Well, didn't the Play School house have a downstairs window as well? I mean, he's got like two windows. I mean, it's like his image of a poor person's house, isn't it? Because he's got like 350 windows in his house. But, you know, it's like two windows at the top and a door in the middle. And then, you know, the slopey roof. It's his impression of a poor person's house. But it's like, where's the downstairs windows? There should be at least one downstairs window, isn't there? Either the lounge or the kitchen, depending on what's at the front of the house. Diana Davison video is utter self-parody, best episode of Brass Eye ever. Yeah. But anyway, have I seen Sunak is doing an hour-long QA with GB News next week? No, but it doesn't surprise me after doing the same thing with Piers Morgan's Talk TV. Ray Harvey, £5 super chat, thank you very much, says, people who will not vote Labour because of Guards' position like to vote Tory given their position. Well, see, that's the mad thing, isn't it? What you're basically saying is, if you're, first of all, I will end with this. I find the suggestion that Muslims are going to vote a particular way because of a Gaza position, I actually find that deeply Islamophobic. Can you imagine? Right, imagine the scenario where, let us say that someone were to suggest, let's say I were to suggest, because I'm a Christian, let's say I were to suggest that after Rishi Sunak's and his Tory party are attacking asylum seekers, given that Jesus is the most famous refugee in history, let's say I were to suggest that, Christians all over the country are going to stop voting Tory because of his position on asylum. Would anyone take me seriously? No, they wouldn't, would they? No, they wouldn't. You can take seriously the idea that attacking asylum seekers is not very Christian, but the idea that Christians would vote against the Conservatives because of that position is laughable. You'd think, well, no, because that's ridiculous. Christians aren't one-dimensional people. And yet you've got people who claim they're speaking for the Muslim population, who are trying to basically say that Muslims, that a large number of Muslims are not only one-dimensional, but they're actually so stupid that they would use their vote on an issue that it doesn't matter who's in power, Labour or the Conservatives, cannot actually deliver what they want anyway. They haven't got the power to. So no, don't get me wrong. Some people have been hoodwinked. There will be some impact. Some people have been hoodwinked by grifters, essentially. But is it causing like the Muslim population across the land to suddenly change their vote? No. And the polling doesn't show that either. And as I say, I think if I were a Muslim, I would be insulted by these people. Let's face it, the people we're talking about, white, middle class, upper middle class people who are trying to tell me what I should think about the Middle East, right? That's what's going on. But there we go. The servants live downstairs, Phil, no windows for them. Yeah, but that's supposed to be downstairs into the basement, not on the ground floor. But there we go. How's a physics lecturer like Phil a Christian? You name me 10 of the most famous physicists in history, and most of them were religious. Most of them were Christian. But anyway, but then we'll have to leave it there. We're sort of run out of time there now. Thanks very much for coming on, everyone. We'll have to see what further disasters emerge from today. But I'll be quite interested in knowing, just my parting thought, those Tory MPs who were basically banging on Sunak's door to apologise and probably expected him to apologise. I will be interested where they go from here, because if you've got a Tory MP, by the way, particularly in a marginal seat or one that's going to be unsafe, email them about it and say, what do you think about the Prime Minister's comments in PMQs yesterday? Ask them, see if they get back to you. And because some of them are going to have to think about it now. they're going to have to think about what they say, because Rishi Sunak has now doubled down on it. He's now committed himself to it. So the apology is gone. He's asked. He's offered to meet the parents of Brianna J. So that'll be interesting. I mean, we won't see it recorded, of course. We won't know if he actually laughs in their face or anything. But that'll be interesting, given that her father has said that Sunak should apologise. But there we go. Yeah, thanks for coming on, everyone. Have a very good day. Don't forget to click the like button and to subscribe to the channel. And until next time, I'll see you later.